How do we convince a guy we're committed to winning? You wouldn't be coaching this league if you weren't committed to winning. I think that's a little bit of a silly narrative there because we're doing everything we can to be a championship caliber team. And if you come in our building and you feel the energy from our scouting department, our coaches, our players, you would have no question about that. And I think that the players that get a chance to spend time with the players we have on our roster and this coaching staff will know that it's something that people want to be on board with, and there's great days ahead for the Bengals.
Zach Taylor, Bengals coach from the Combine last week. Nice guy. Great guy. Tough situation because the Bengals over the years have been regarded as a team that struggles to be competitive. Yes, they've been to 2 Super Bowls, but it's been a long time since the last time that happened. Yes, they had 5 straight playoff appearances. In the grand scheme of the NFL, though, which focuses more on recent accomplishments, it's been a long time since they've had a playoff caliber team. They now reportedly are trying to change the narrative by being heavily involved, whatever that means, in the upper and middle level free agents, which it would be a first for the Bengals. Peter, you covered the Bengals before free agency, but you saw some of the frugality that makes it difficult for the Bengals to be competitive. Do you really think they're going to break out the crowbar and start spending a bunch of money just to change the narrative, and will it work?
I don't think they would do it just to change the narrative, Mike. Mike Brown is not one of these guys who gives a flying squirrel about the narrative, quite honestly.
Whoa!
Because he's hearing it.
Whoa, you made me nervous there.
You heard that, didn't you?
I like flying squirrels,
Here's the thing about Mike Brown, that if you consider what has happened in the time that he has run the Bengals, which has basically been 3 decades, he's never cared about what the outside world thinks, ever. And he's not going to start caring when he's 84, whatever he is, years old. So to me, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to do basically what sort of Duke Tobin and Zach Taylor direct them to do. Okay, right now, if they get rid of Andy Dalton, which they certainly will, that means they would have $62 million under the cap heading into free agency. If that happens, I still think you've got to ask yourself, do you really want to devote $18 million to A.J. Green?
Right.
Who has missed 24 of the last 32 games with injury, who's in his 30s, going to be 32 this year. And do you really want to devote that much money to a guy who you don't know how many games he's going to play? That, to me, is one of the maddening things about the Bengals, that they just assume, okay, we're gonna keep A.J. Green. I'll tell you what they should do with A.J. Green. They should try to tag and trade him.
Yes.
Just the way that a bunch of teams, I think, with pass rushers are going to do. Try to tag and trade him, and don't take, a low 1 or a high 2 or something like that. Take basically whatever you can get just to help yourself in the draft. Could you imagine if they tagged and traded A.J. Green and got, let's say, a mid-3 for him, or a 4 even, okay? In the receiver crop this year, there were 45 receivers at the scouting combine. This is probably the best receiver draft of all time. I'm just saying, if I'm the Bengals, give me Emmanuel Sanders in free agency. We'll spend a little money there. And then let me take 2 or 3 guys in the draft. You got Tyler Boyd. You've got guys on your team right now who you can sculpt into talent for the future and have them grow with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points, Peter. There's no doubt about it. I'm with you. The A.J. Green situation is fascinating. Because, the Bengals have a chance to get some assets there. I would think that they could get a first-round pick for A.J. Green, even at his age with the injury history.
I don't see it.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean,
hang on a second.
Yeah.
Peter, think about this.
Right.
And this is where I think the Bengals blew it. And this is one of the reasons why I doubt that they have the right expertise and savvy to maximize the value of their assets. They should have traded him at the deadline.
Yes, they should.
Mohamed Sanu got a 2.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Sanders got a 3 and a 4. If you move him at the deadline, you're getting a 1 for him. You may not get one now, but they would have gotten one in October.
Mike, the problem with you would not have gotten a 1 in October because A.J. Green was
Wasn't
damaged
healthy.
goods last year.
Right.
He wasn't going. He didn't even play the whole year. So,
there was a point
nice
where he
to
shut
say,
it down. Come on.
At the deadline.
There's a point where he said, screw it, I ain't going out on the field. I don't know that, but I think the circumstances suggest that injury at a certain point wasn't an injury.
How can you say that a 31-year-old wide receiver who hasn't played the whole year and you're not sure about his health, how can you say you're getting a 1 for him? That's crazy.
Well,
crazy.
I don't think it's
Mohamed Sanu got a 2.
I think you could make the case.
That's right, and he was playing.
Well,
he
and
was
maybe,
healthy.
Maybe you get a number 2. Maybe you get into bidding more. I mean, AJ Green's the type of talent where, I mean, we're talking about like a border Hall of Fame talent guy here, where you get Green Bay and New England involved in a conversation for a receiver. It's very interesting. Wait,
he wasn't playing.
I get you.
He
I know.
Zero
I'm
snaps
still,
all year.
I get it.
But Peter, there's a big difference between whether or not they decided to put him on the field and whether he decided he wanted to go on the field knowing that free agency was looming versus whether he would have been able if he had been traded. I mean, the injury happened at the beginning of training camp. I feel like over the last couple months of the year, it had more to do with business reasons than injury reasons.
AJ Green there. You know, there's a lot of things.
We got to go.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back.
We've decided to hold over the A.J. Green conversation because we all had some spirited comments to make. And, Peter, I want to start with you as we continue this. Joe Burrow, the presumptive number 1 overall pick in the draft, speaking to the media last week, said he'd like the Bengals to keep A.J. Green around. How much of that is a factor when you consider there is a bit of a delicate dance there? Sorry, Bengals truthers, but it's the truth. There's a delicate dance to make Joe Burrow want to be in Cincinnati.
Look, if your doctors tell you that AJ Green is fit as a fiddle and there is no reason why he can't play the next 3 years healthy, then I'm fine with paying him, keeping him, everything like that. All I'm doing is looking at history. And I agree, if you're Joe Burrow, you want some help. You've just come from a place where every player on your offense, almost every player could be an NFL draft choice. So, just think of this. If you're Joe Burrow, you want help. You don't know these guys. You don't know them at all. But you've heard of A.J. Green, famous guy and all that stuff. I doubt he's ever met A.J. Green. I doubt he knows A.J. Green. If you just say to Joe Burrow, we're going to give you help, and go out and get Emmanuel Sanders or trade for a receiver, whatever it is, go get a tight end, or develop one. My only point is, if you're going to pay A.J. Green $18 million either for this year or in an average contract, you better be sure that these are fluky injuries and not a sign of things to come.
Well, that's very real, and that's an interesting conversation because Joe Burrow, they could trade A.J. Green and give you a lot of young assets to grow with into the future, so that could be fun too. We'll be back right after this with the 3-man weave.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.